The purest intention of bonsai is to recreate nature in miniature. You have this nostalgia and you have these memories built up from these experiences in the environment. You put those memories into a tree, you bring that tree into your space that you exist, and you bring that nature home. And inside of the practice of bonsai, you start to recognize that this microcosm connects you to the natural environment. It embodies this grand environment. The tree is the great storyteller. It tells us things about the land that we cannot deduce ourselves. Mineral content, moisture levels, direction of the wind, the angle of the sun. The tree bridges the land to human and informs us about the environment in which we exist. Across the world, these great communicators that help us understand the land upon which we stand are disappearing in a mass extinction and a loss of flora. And it feels pertinent to embed myself in the environment, to understand these elements, to try to process them in the way that the tree does, and to see what the outcome of that is that comes from this work. I want to know about every aspect of the environment, of the physiology, of the science, of the influencing factors, of the ecology, of the understory, of the fauna, of the flora. Like, it just keeps getting bigger and bigger, and I think as it gets bigger, it's pushing me more and more to be there, because there's a big difference between learning from a book and knowing and being someplace and knowing the smell and the feel and the humidity of the air and the sting of the wind and the shortness of oxygen or the angle of the sun and the soil content and the texture of the, like, you can know about a place in an educated fashion, but you can't know a place until you've been there. Hey, Crater Lake National Park! Woo! We're in it. We're in it. Yes. Well, I mean, this is the beginning of it. You've got lodge poles and hemlocks. It's a weird combination. Damn, crystal clear blue skies. Get out of my face before I just pass out. Oh my God. That's what I'm talking about. Wow. Wow. Brought the right tree. I brought a limber. These are whitebarks, which are very genetically closely related. Look at this thing. I saw some pictures of some ancient whitebark pine here that I felt were not going to be around much longer and needed documentation. And that was the entire reason, was actually to come here for those trees. The lake was of very little motivation. Like, I wanted to see it. I wanted to know why it's a national park, because just a random lake doesn't feel very special, but I clearly was incredibly ignorant. Very radical.
What if we fell off into the water?
That would be cool. Crater Lake is a phenomenon that connects to so many different aspects of the environment, the landscape. Iconic of the Pacific Northwest, prominent national park in North America, a filled-in volcano, actually a volcano inside of a volcano. Part of the Pacific Ring of Fire when Pangaea was still intact. And it also happens to be one of the few places where the whitebark pine still grows natively, and they're disappearing rapidly. As we kind of see the flora of the world changing and being impacted by all of the drama of change, to capture these spaces and to get to try and know them as deeply as possible before they're gone or before they change to a degree that they're not recognizable compared to what they once were, that's a motivation. I'm gonna go up this way, and I think we'll get up into the rocks. If the national park system was dissolved or if it disappeared, things that will never occur on this planet ever again, at least not in our existence as organisms, we would never get back, never get it back. And so when you try to create a value around keeping something so substantial that it changes people's perception of reality or their awareness of how they interact and where they fit in to this greater concept of a person in the environment, I think it's an immeasurable value that is worth preserving regardless of the cost. The most disturbing thing to me about the current condition of the environment and the natural world is that we're losing things so fast that we don't even know what we're losing. And there are people studying ancient trees for specific scientific reasons, but there aren't really people studying ancient trees for their aesthetic and the communication that that aesthetic can convey. Crater Lake is a dramatic event that created this landmark, right? But around Crater Lake is a continual dramatic event that creates these trees and informs these trees. I had no idea how rugged that environment was because the lake is so blue. It almost lulls you into some sort of pastoral notion of what's happening here, and it's not pastoral, it's quite violent. As you get off the beaten path and you start seeing these contorted trees crushed by snow, destroyed by wind, it all kind of started to make sense because the whitebark pine, like a lot of other five-needle pines, has its seeds and its cones distributed by mammals, and they're put in places where snow cannot accumulate because of high wind. And the convergence of storm systems and air currents and pressure systems generates such a fascinating dynamic in the trees because there isn't a singular windward direction, whereas you would see an eastern flow to trees when they're being influenced by the jet stream at Crater Lake. It's completely determined by where they sit along the rim of the lake, and it's a very circular influence of wind that gives rise to unique shapes. thing that I like about being in the environment is all of the structures that we create in the organized environment cease to matter, right? So your social standing, your gender, your race, your ethnicity, none of that stuff matters in the natural. Nature doesn't care, couldn't care less, right? You are organism in environment. And when you think about the tree, you know, the tree is also organism and environment. So the tree is responding to the environment and doing its best to survive, but it doesn't have the ability to make a choice. And then when you put yourself in that environment and you strip away all of the fundamentals of the organized world, you almost more closely approximate yourself to a tree, because now you are just responding to the environment in the same way as an equal footing organism. And that was really powerful at Crater Lake, to be responding in a way that then, when I saw the product of that response, equaled the response of a being that had been there for several thousand years and had far more input from the environment, but we both experienced similar things. I found that to be a very deep connection that I could never have gotten from another environment. Bonsai is thought to be a gardening endeavor. It's thought to be a Japanese endeavor. What I'm hoping people start to understand is bonsai is so much more than that. Bonsai is a relationship that helps us understand our greater purpose in the environment that we exist within. You know, I didn't go into this planning on having this like grand discovery. We asked a very simple question: what happens when you take what we're doing here and you do it there? What happens? And suddenly it's like, a lot. A lot happens. Apparently, you know, nature is pretty powerful. Yeah, that's what happened.
Throughout the world, the ancient trees, these orators that connect the land to humans, are dying at a rapid rate. And the faster we can document them, the more intimate our experience in their documentation, the more we're going to be able to preserve the lessons they have to present about how we exist in this landmass as a fellow living organism.